What's up, guys? In this video we're working on the 59 El Camino, so let's go. This thing got half submerged twice. Oh no, it's just coming apart. That's right, guys, we're back working on the 59 El Camino. Now this is part of a series that we just started back up, working on this rough 59 El Camino. And yeah, it's rough, but that's about the only way you're going to be able to afford one these days. Now this one was abandoned in a field for who knows how many years and got flooded by a river, so everything was super rusty. And in the last video we dug out the rear end, which was locked up, and discovered that it was probably beyond repair. Now, so with that, I started scouring Marketplace, and luckily I found one available. It was listed as a 1960 Chevy rear end. It was disassembled, but all there. And they were asking $150. Now, this is about a 5-hour round trip for me to drive, but after searching around, there was nothing really else available in that price range. So I drove down to Grants Pass and met up with Jason. That had it available. Like I was saying, they're asking $150. Now it was listed as a 1960 Chevy rear end, complete but disassembled. And I was mainly looking for the center section, but I was willing to take the whole rear end if it was going to bolt right in here, because the one we had was pretty rough. But well, let me show you what I got. Now I showed up. This is what he had on the garage floor. This 1960 Chevy housing with the complete axles and back and brakes and drums and a center section. But I discovered that this is a 1960 Chevy Corvette rear end with leaf springs, and it's got different pinning angle and different stuff. This isn't gonna bolt right into the 59. But the center section is mainly what I was after, and let me show you that. It was this one right here. Now, this is a 1956 Chevy center section. What the deal was is he bought that 60 Corvette rear end and took the factory posi center out of it and put it in his 56 Chevy, and pulled his center section out of the 56 Chevy and threw it in with that rear end. So that Corvette rear end isn't going to work for us, but this center section will go right in ours, which I started cleaning up. If you remember how bad this thing looked, check it out now. Now I wire wheeled this whole thing and then gave it a paint job. Cleaned it out inside. Now it's got a little bit of pitting, but nothing major. This thing is gonna work. Now, like I was saying, I did clean it up and paint it, and I did make some video of that. So let me show you that really quick, and then we'll continue from there. All right, I'm getting ready to clean this rear end out. I gotta make it work, you know. That's pretty bad. Now I'm gonna start, chiseling away at this stuff and breaking it loose, and then probably use a shop vac and vacuum most of this out of here. And then I purchased some white vinegar, the same stuff I used when we did the gas tank on the bus. And that gas tank was pretty bad, and it worked pretty good. So I hope it'll work on this. You have to figure out how I'm actually going to do it. I'm going to probably figure out a way to cap these ends, so then I can fill this whole thing with the vinegar and let it soak for a couple days, and then we'll try cleaning all this out of here and hopefully be able to use this with that other center section. All right, check it out, guys. I've been working at the wire wheel and shot back most of that out of there. And wiping it out with some SuperClean. And I think there's some good results there. I mean, there's some pitting down here, but not too bad. Most of that rust was, located down here in the bottom of this center section. But I just got started. I still got a lot more to do. But those tubes don't look too bad. I just got to keep cleaning those out. What I'm doing with those is I just have this pipe and wadding up a rag at the end and just shoving it through, cleaning out those tubes and wiping this out. Now, just to verify that that pitting wasn't too bad, I spun it over to the other side. Oops. And I cleaned it up with the wire wheel, just making sure that there's no rust holes or anything, and pulled out the fill plug and the drain plug and cleaned those up. But yeah, I don't think I'm gonna actually need to use the vinegar. I'm just gonna keep working by hand. So get it back up here. But yeah, I'm just gonna keep working at cleaning this thing up by hand, using the wire wheel, and I'll get it all ready to reinstall a center section in there, and we'll slap in the axles with the new bearings and seals, and this thing should be good to go. Alright, I got this thing all wire wheeled down to metal for the most part. Got all the rust off of it, got it all cleaned up, degreased it, even doused it in some brake clean, and got it all ready for painting. So I got a can of black spray paint. I'll give this thing a coat of paint. So that leaves us where we're at now. Now I was thinking, even though we couldn't use this housing, maybe we could use the axles and the backing plates and brakes, having like Corvette parts, have like Corvette brakes and Corvette axles. It'd almost be like having cop parts,
It's got cop tires, cop suspension, cop shocks.
Anyway, after doing some measurements, of course we can't use the housing. And then I checked, and the axles are different lengths. Not much, but there's a difference there. And then the brakes and the backing plates are a little bit different, and the hubs are a little different as well. So all the Corvette stuff I'm going to keep together and try to resell. Oh, which I failed to mention. Now, he was asking $150 for it all, but it's quite a drive, and, I'm on a budget. So I asked him, would you be willing to take anything less? He said, absolutely. Have it. He just gave it to me, guys, for free. So Jason, if you're watching, thank you so much, man. That was a blessing. I appreciate it. So we got that whole rear end set up for free. I mean, other than the 5.5, 6 hour round trip drive and all the gas. But so that means we could probably maybe resell the remaining Corvette parts and collect a little bit more money to put towards this build. We're running on a budget, especially with the views being down and what have you. And this, these parts aren't cheap. So we're really scraping by these days, guys. So if we could get a little bit out of this, we're going to do it. Even though I was thinking maybe still have to look into it, but like the e-brake cable was no good on the El Camino. Maybe those e-brake cables work. And same with the brake lines themselves. These are all brand new and painted brake lines. I can probably take those off and reuse those as well. But that leaves us to where we're at now. And we got this rear in now. Yesterday I did clean it all up. Scraped all the grease off, degreased it, brake cleaned it. I'm going to put a coat of paint on this. And the other thing we need to work on today is getting these axles ready to reinstall into that rear end. Now, if you remember, those were pretty funky too, but I degreased them and cleaned them up pretty good. I took the wire wheel and got all the rust off. Now, these splines aren't perfect, but they're not too bad. It'll work. The trick is getting these old bearings off so we could press on new ones. My best bet is probably just to cut them off, which is probably what we'll do. There is a method where I could strike this retaining one with a chisel, and hopefully if I give it a hard enough blow with the chisel, it'll actually expand it just a hair enough to get it off of here, and then we could cut the bearing off. So we need to do that, as well as paint that center section. And I'll probably actually take the brakes that we pulled off of here and get those all cleaned up and prepped as well. They're pretty rough. I've gotten all new brake components to put in there, but we want to get that stuff cleaned up and get everything ready to reassemble into this rear end housing. And ultimately, we'll get it back in the car as soon as we can. We want to get this thing back on the road. Now, I'd mentioned how rough it is. I don't plan on doing too much cosmetic work right now. We're just trying to get it back on the road and driving. So let's get all set up and get busy. All right, like I was saying, I already prepped this as good as I can get it. Let's get some paint on it. Of course, the first coat's just gonna be a light coat, and to get it to bond, and then we'll lay it on thick next. There, it's completely rebuilt. Now, I'm not sure if I mentioned, but I did ask him if it was mechanically sound, if it was working fine when he pulled it, and he said, yeah, absolutely. And I checked it out. You know, it doesn't look like there's any chips or worn marks, or nothing's loose. It seems like it'll be good to run the way it is, so we're gonna trust that it works and slap it in there, and we'll see. All right, I got the axle laid out here, and I got it laying on this big chunk of steel for a solid base, because what the factory manual says to do to remove this bearing is, first of all, you got to get off this lock ring, this first one here, and these are all pressed fit on here. But they say if you just hit this with a chisel just on there like that and give it a good nick, it'll expand this just enough to release it off this shaft and be able to remove it. And then if we succeed at that, then we move on to the bearing here next, which is also pressed on here, and this one will probably just cut it off. Get the angle grinder with the cutoff wheel and just cut this off. Now, I did research this a little bit by watching Freeman's garage. He's doing this on his 56, so I'll put a link to his channel here. Now, watching his video really helped me understand what I need to do here. So if you're watching, Freeman, thank you for your video. Appreciate it. Hopefully I can make this happen. Now, I noticed, like on the 56 that he was working on, his bearing retainer housing, or this flange here, was much larger, and you couldn't get to this bearing very well. He had to, you know, zip tie this back out of the way, and you could still barely get in here. This one is allowing us all kinds of space. I could probably even take these studs out of here if I wanted, but I'll just move it back out of the way and should be able to access this with the angle grinder just fine, cutting that off. And then once that's off, then we can get this all cleaned up and ready to install the new bearings and seals. All right, it's my first attempt. Let's give it a try. Now, I was thinking of using the smaller one at first, but I'm just gonna go for the big dog.
He knows the big dog runs the show.
That's you, baby, the big dog. Ruff, ruff. Big dog. Ruff, 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 ruff.
Let's try to get this position just right, and without breaking my hand, smack this hard enough with the hammer that release that lock ring. Well, I hit it twice, different spots. I meant to hit it in the same. Let me work on this, the same spot again here. Keep working at this. Might take a few blows. It hasn't seemed to release yet. There's not much leverage or angles to hit on this. It's kind of tricky. I think it's moving. It's coming off now. There we go. Well, that's that lock ring. Now we got to work on the bearing. I mean, what if I got lucky and I just hammered it off? Let's try it. Try not to beat up that plate. All right, there you go. All right, axle number 1 done. Now for axle number 2. And let me show you what I'm doing here up close. See? I'm just putting this little notch in this thing, which should expand it just enough to release its grip and come off there. So that's what we're doing. Almost off. Now, instead of getting out the cutting wheel and trying to cut this, I'm going to do like last time and just try to hammer it off and see if that works. Well, I already broke it. It just cracked in half. It's coming. It's just coming apart. Now, there's something I just realized, and something I noticed, is that this is the original style ball bearing. The one we just took off is the newer style with I think it's got roller bearings in it, and it's got 2 O-rings instead of just this one. So somebody's replaced that other one at one point. This one might be original. coming out in pieces. So all we got left is that inner bearing race. Might have to cut that one off. Oh yeah, this one's hardened. It just chipped up my chisel bad. Yeah, we're gonna have to cut that. Guys, I totally just cut this off and I failed to record it. I don't know what happened to the camera. I thought I hit record, but it didn't get it. But, you know, this was on there, and as you can see, I took the angle grinder and cut it down. I didn't want to go too deep because I didn't want to nick the axle shaft. But then once I got that in there, that cut in there, I put this chisel in here and hammered it, and it actually split this and cracked it, and I was able to just hammer it off the rest of the way. So now we got those axle bearings off the axle shafts, and we'll clean this up and get it ready for new ones to be pressed on. Well, real quick, something else I noticed, you know, passenger side, we were missing a stud. It's not too uncommon, but the driver's side, something I noticed, it was kind of strange. See if you can see it here, but these wheel studs, not all of them are pressed in all the way. Some of these are sticking out this back side almost a 1/4 inch. They were never pressed in all the way. That's how this thing was mounted with the wheels and how I moved it and everything. So who knows? They were never able to get these. I guess there's 3 of those, 3 of the 5. They never got 3 of the 5 studs pressed in all the way. So when we go to press on the bearings, we'll press those in the rest of the way, and I also got to get another one for this side. Now, well, before I can start reassembling things, I got to get everything that's going to go back on there cleaned and prepped and maybe painted even, get it all ready to go back together. Things like these bearing housings and that hardware, even the ends of the axle shafts, get those all cleaned up, and of course these brakes, the rear brake, you know, we got the drum brakes from the back of the El Camino that are just rusted up. The cables are bad. I can pull the cables and all of the brake parts apart and try to get those backing plates all cleaned up and painted and well, ready for all the new brake parts that are going on there. So that's what I'm doing next. Well, let's get these brakes disassembled so I could clean them up. I should have did this when they were still mounted on the rear end, when it was still in the car. It would have been much easier to pull these springs. Now I'm going to have to try to step on this or hold it somehow while I pull it apart. But let's get that done. Those springs and hardware is looking pretty rough. We'll probably have to buy a new brake hardware kit. Now a little tip to getting these e-brakes out, you know, they're really hard to get out of the backing plates with those spines holding it. A little trick I learned was use a 9/16 box end wrench. Of course, a little penetrating fluid helps. And you just work this down. until you got it down towards the base. And then, I mean, you have to wrestle with it. You can get it out that way. There you go. Okay, I started just by, scraping off all the bigger debris as much as I can, both sides. One of them's pretty oily, this one. This one's just kind of rusty, but scraping it as much as I can off, and then, well, SuperClean to the rescue again. Let's go. Well, that was the first go. Doing it down here on the ground like this by hand, you don't get instant results. It takes a lot more work. So I'm gonna probably have to do that whole process again before they're anywhere ready to be painted. I'm not gonna make you watch me do that again, but I'll keep working at these, get them all cleaned up and ready for paint. And same with these axles over here, and just keep cleaning these portions down here up in the bearing retainer covers. Get those all cleaned up and ready for paint as well. Alright guys, it's the next day. Now I got those backing plates all cleaned up and painted last night. Here, let me show you. There you go. Now, it's not perfect, but much better than it was, that's for sure. And you got that center section all painted up and ready to go. And, well, I didn't do the axles yet because, well, pressing the new bearings and seals on and all that's gonna mar them up a little bit, so we'll wait till after we get that all done, and then we'll get those a paint job. Well, now that just leaves us waiting for parts. We ordered the axle bearings and seals. We ordered the new lower shock mounts. We got a new center section gasket coming. All the new rear suspension bushings. So once we get all those parts in, hopefully next week, we'll get right back into it. Pretty much, we got all the brake parts we need. Actually, I'm going to add to that order a brake part hardware kit, and I think that's all we need at this point to get that rear end all buttoned up and refurbished and back in there. So we're going to have to end the video here, guys. I want to say thank you to all my members. I really appreciate you guys helping me. Together, we're getting these old classics back on the road, one part at a time. And please make sure you like and comment, and make sure you subscribe to the channel, guys. And until next time, peace.